all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 p.m. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchase for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 pm. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchased for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 pm. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchased for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 pm. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchased for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 pm. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchased for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has an invisible and universal language. Smell is the most chemical of all the senses. It is most intimately rooted with our emotions and memories. Smell provokes powerful memories. Can scent be used to diagnose diseases? What does fear smells like? Can we respond to smell even if we are not conscious? We will get answers to all these questions and many more queries in the session Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it's chemistry, the science of odor. We will have privilege to interact with Professor T.K. Pine from the Department of Inorganic Chemistry, IACS, Kolkata. 23rd of July, 7 pm. When we reached our new class, one of the favorite memories of ours is the smell of new books our parents purchased for us. We all have experienced watery mouth by the smell of hot sizzling food. Smell has and invisible.
A very good evening to one and all present. I am Kavya from Shiv School, Noida, in my first year IBDP program as an HS chemistry student. Before we start, let me introduce the ethos of Team KaryoUS, a cross-campus science society which believes in maximizing the outreach of students, faculty of Shiv School, Shiv University, and members of the Shiv Foundation. This society is working diligently to enable, on a mass scale, the interaction among students and faculties from grade 6 all the way to college undergraduate level.
Hi, I'm Abhyuday Chavla from Shiv School, Gurgaon. I'm currently in my second year of the IBDP program and I'm studying higher level chemistry.
And I am Gunjan Gupta, a master's student majoring in chemistry in Shiv University. I have been the Associate Secretary of the Chemistry Society for the past 2 years. The Chemistry Society is a student-run body in place to create a welcoming environment for students from any stream to develop their interest in chemistry and explore aspects of the subject beyond what the textbook offers through events, discussions, and various other interactive activities planned and hosted by us. Kavya, Abhyuday, and I are the moderators for today's talk and are honored to welcome everyone present here. Today, we shall discuss the chemistry associated with odor and hope it will give a lot more insight about the science behind this crucial sense of our lives.
We have with us Mr. Matthew, Head of Connected Learning at Shiv School, Noida. Sir, could we please request you to say a few words and welcome Dr. Pine?
Well, yes, welcome Dr. Pine, and of course, welcome the students, which is very important. Cross-campus, connected, that is the word of the century now. It doesn't matter where we are, what time of day we are, geography does not matter. But what's exciting, it brings all the learners who are interested together. I mean, this topic about odour, I mean, what an interesting topic. I think we all need to understand chemistry. And now I want to understand how we taste as well and all the other things. But isn't this relevant to our lives? Isn't this what the world is about? You know, these sessions that we're having to Miss Vanita's team is exciting. And I think, you know, the fact that you're here connecting with these people who are experts in their field, people who are very interested and have a passion for learning is what education is all about. It is not about textbooks. It's not about exams. It's about the curiosity of understanding the world we're in and what we can do to make it a better place, not just for yourself, but for your family, community, and the world itself. So I welcome everyone tonight. I have found every one of these sessions that Ms. Vanita runs exciting, and it's the passion of the students and the passion of our educators, our professors, who have that expertise, but also want to connect to the wider community. And isn't that exciting? We're not just stuck at a university or any campus. We are learners together. So welcome everyone tonight. Looking forward to the smell of this topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insightful words. I'm sure all of us are excited to hear Dr. Pine give his speech on this topic, which is so prevalent in our everyday lives.
Welcome Shri Parna ma'am, a very passionate chemistry teacher from Shiv School, Gurgaon. Do you mind taking 2 minutes out and giving your thoughts on the upcoming session?
You're on mute, Shri Parna. Thank you, Abhyuday, and thank you, Team KaryoUS, for giving me this opportunity to speak a little and welcome Dr. Pine. A very good evening to our students and colleagues. Just like all of you, I'm excited about today's talk by Dr. Pine. We are looking forward to learning about the science behind the fragrances, flavors, and odors. Chemistry is linked to all our senses of perception. Smell is one of them, and today Dr. Pine will take us through understanding of the chemistry behind smell. But what about sound? How about those crackling noises and the pop sound and the bang or the boom that you enjoyed in the lab? The sight, the color changes, the clear solution turning turbid, the rainbow of the pH changes that you saw with the universal indicator. What about feelings, the warmth or the coolness that we often feel when a reaction takes place? You pop a honey tusk capsule into your tongue, and feel the coolness. And of course, taste. All master chefs learn to change the chemistry of food to impact the taste. And you may have experienced for yourself the same in your kitchen. So I would just say two things about two aspects of chemistry that, just like you, as a lover of chemistry, I think they are very important. First thing is that chemistry is a science of interconnectedness. Whether it's within you, immediately around you, or far from you, you will find chemistry everywhere. And hence we study biochemistry, medicinal chemistry, pharmaceutical chemistry, environmental chemistry, industrial chemistry, and so on, because it connects all the natural and the applied sciences. And the second thing, for appreciating chemistry, one has to develop powerful magical lenses through which one can imagine and visualize the invisible atoms and molecules that constitute matter. All that you observe can only be explained by all that you cannot observe. And that is the beauty of understanding the philosophy of chemistry. Without further taking more time, let us get ready to learn, imagine, visualize the science of odor with Dr. Pine. Welcome, Dr. Pine.
Should I start now?
Just a second, sir. Thank you, Shiparna ma'am. On that note, we would like to welcome you to today's session presented by KaryoUS, Wonders of Chemistry. If it smells, it is chemistry, taken by our esteemed guest, Dr. Tapan Pine.
It gives me immense pleasure to introduce the esteemed faculty, Dr. Tapan Pine from the Indian Association of Cultivation of Science, IACS, Kolkata. Dr. Pine is one of the great minds of our country, making way for very relevant progress in the field of inorganic chemistry currently. He has been awarded various honors, including the CRSI Bronze Medal in 2019. His recent research work have been in the field of development of non-platinum metal complexes with therapeutic potentials, along with many more interesting studies involving metal complexes. A hearty welcome to you from our side, sir.
On behalf of Team KaryoUS, I'd also like to introduce Mayank sir, who is the voice behind the video, Jayati ma'am, who took the initiative to reach out to Dr. Pine, Jayati ma'am, who spared her time in the initial stage of planning, and Vinita ma'am for giving us a platform to collaborate and work together in spreading awareness about science.
We would also like to request the audience to actively use the comment section to raise any questions on the chat box on YouTube. Your questions shall be taken up by 3 members of the Chemistry Society, Madhav, Sanjana, and Amresh. We will continue to resolve your queries throughout the session and raise a few questions in the question-answer session with Dr. Pine sir as well. We hope to spark a lively discussion with you during the session. Without further ado, we would like to invite Dr. Pine to begin his fascinating session. Over to you, sir.
Okay, so is the slide visible? All right.
Yes, sir, it is.
And I'm audible, right? Perfectly fine, everybody?
Everything's great.
Okay, very good. So good evening, everybody. And thank you very much for inviting me, for having on this platform to share certain things with you. As you can see, the topic that I picked up for this particular evening lecture, if it mails, it's chemistry. And then I put something called the science of odor. I did not say the chemistry of odor. Let me tell you at the beginning that I'm a practicing researcher, and my group is involved in research in inorganic chemistry, as Gunjan was telling. But this particular topic is not a topic of my research. This is quite an intriguing topic, and I picked up this topic when I was in my master's year. So This is not something that I know a lot about. I'm still learning, and I would like to share with you my understanding on this topic. So the way I understood it, I would like to put forward it for you. There will be a lot of open questions. There will be some intriguing aspect here, and there are some aspect which cannot be really addressed because of the lack of understanding. So with this, let me take you to this particular topic. So as you know that a long back in ancient time, we have been thinking about our mode of perceptions, because this particular world, our knowledge, that depends on our modes of perception. And as Aristotle said long back, that there are primarily 5 senses. There might be debate that there could be more senses, but these are the 5 primary senses, like sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. And out of this, odor or olfaction is a primal sense as well. Whether or not we understand it fully, but this particular sense has attracted considerable attention in recent times, although this is a topic that not only attracted our interest and its association in our everyday life every moment, but still this was a cheap style until recent times. So as you know that smell in our everyday life, I don't need to tell you, every moment, every time, when we encounter a smell, be it good or bad, which is a relative thing, but in general, we perceive a smell and we call it, oh, it's a good smell or it's a bad smell. So those who are interested in this topic, I would tell you to read this particular book. This is quite an interesting book, titled as What the Nose Knows, The Science of Scent in Everyday Life. This is a very interesting book. If you want to read this, spend some time on it. This is written in a very easy and quite humorous way sometimes. And you know, this particular topic of smell that not only is important in our everyday life, but this has taken position from everyday life to literature as well. I mean, in every language, every literature, smell really took an important position. I do not understand about other literature, but in my own language, in my childhood, when I was like in my primary school, we started learning a poem. That time, a poem we had to read, which is something is on this smell. And this poem was written by Sukumar Ray. He's a famous poet who wrote a lot of humorous poems for kids, who is in fact a father of Satyajit Ray. Many of you, those who do not know. So Sukumar Ray is the father of Satyajit Ray. And since you may not be able to follow the Bengali poem, so what I do here is that I put up recent books which has been published recently by a person who has translated. I would not say really a true translation of poem is possible, but this book is something, a translation of the Bengali poem or book is called Abul Tabul. And this English name they have interestingly given is Wadi Gadi Boom. So this means the nonsense world of Sukumar Ray, and where Ruskin Bond wrote about the, why this book is so important and how it has in fact created interest in young mind. So why I'll not really get into that English translation of that poem, but relevant to today's topic, I'll just read. You can see here in the first stanza where it says that the king sat down on his throne to the crash of bell and gong. The old monster's mind was seized by a tremor deep and strong. What's that smell about you? Said the king to his minister. A scent, my king, came the reply. Sweet more than sinister. Sweet or sour, let the doctor tell, announced the king. Said the doctor, with my stuffy nose, I cannot smell a thing. The king hollered, send then for Ramnar and Scruff. Said Scruff, I cannot, sir. I have just taken some snuff. Stuffed with snuff, no smell can enter, not a whiff. Said the king, step forward, constable, and prepare to sniff. Alas, said the constable, for a camphor I am reeking, so strong a smell obscures the other one you are seeking. So, okay, I don't want to get into the rest of it, but as you understand that certain things about the perception of smell and what, in fact, obstruct the true perception of smells is reflected in these few lines of this poem. But, you know, we can talk about this for a long time, but better I won't spend time on this particular slide. Let's get straight to how smells work. So smell of any particular species, anything, is caused by one or more volatile compound. The volatile chemical, what from now onward I will call it molecule, and generally at very low concentration. You then don't need it in a high amount that humans or other animals perceive by the sense of olfaction. These molecules activate special cells that send a message to our brain. So here, when some molecules get through your nose, through the nasal cavity, and it reaches there in this particular region called olfactory epithelium, and for us, this olfactory epithelium is about 2.5 square centimeter region. Inside, there are about 50 million receptor cells are present, and these are called olfactory receptor cells. And these olfactory receptor cells, in combination with the different kind of cell that supports the neuronal network, the neuron network, which in fact creates the signal that goes to the brain, and eventually we can perceive the smell of a particular thing. And as you know that we can distinguish many different smells. So obviously it is a pertinent question that how this happens. Not only humans, but you think about animals like dogs, the bloodhounds, or you can think of elephants, sharks. They have even much stronger ability, much better ability to sense different smells. So the bloodhound's olfactory epithelium compared to 2.5 square centimeter for humans, they have olfactory epithelium size is about 60 square centimeter. And obviously, since the site is big enough, that contains 300 million receptor cells, and therefore they can detect very little amount of compounds and many different type of compounds, and as a result, they are used as the sniffer dogs for different purposes, including forensic and other purpose. Since they have more number and more type of receptor, and they have a large portion of their brain to process those smells and distinguish those smells, so therefore they have a unique sense. And during the evolution, Mother Nature have created this particular sense in a stronger way because of for their survival, and also the way they need to tackle with the surroundings. Now get into this, how these molecules or the compounds, anything, whenever we smell something, it's very clear that either some molecules are getting to your nose. So if something is solid and if it is not volatile, we cannot really perceive the smell of that compound. So to be smelled, the compound or the molecules must vaporize from the bulk, and they must have some solubility in water because it goes through the nasal cavity. And when it goes through the nasal cavity and it reaches at epithelium position, and there it dissolves in water partially or dissolved in lipids, they are present on the cell membrane, then they can be detected by these cells. But that does not necessarily mean that if a compound is volatile and has the ability to vaporize, they can be smelled. Not necessarily. You have a water vapor around. We have oxygen molecules around. That's essential for aerobic life. Nitrogen gas in air is present. And in fact, in polluted air, you have carbon monoxide. That's a tragic thing that we cannot detect it. Although this is quite toxic and it binds with the hemoglobin in blood, and therefore that inhibits the binding with oxygen, and you can have problem with the breathing. But these molecules, even if they are volatile, they cannot be smelled. Similarly, a solid compound like gold or something else, where the elements which are tightly bound in the structure, in the solid, in the lattice, they do not evaporate, and therefore no molecule reach to our nose and we don't get any smell. Similarly, methane, for example, is a gas, or even a simple thing. You might have noticed that in your home that the LPG cylinders that we use at home, they have primarily these contain compressed gases. These are hydrocarbons, lighter hydrocarbons like methane, ethane, normally not methane, primarily butane and propane. But these are hydrocarbons, they are gas, but we cannot perceive those. They are odorless. And as a result, some other compound and volatile organic molecule is also added to these petroleum products in the cooking gas cylinder, in the cooking cylinder, the gas cylinders for cooking purpose, just so that we know that when a cylinder leaks, that can alert you, and that compound is volatile as well as we can perceive it, but the hydrocarbons we cannot perceive. So already we know that there are problems, and just like if some molecule has, even if they vaporize, even if they have some solubility in water or to be lipophilic, not necessarily they can be perceived by us. So there are many problems. So we have to know that exactly what happens. But before that, let us now see that as the molecule pass off to nose, they reach the olfactory epithelium, a region of the tissue, and the molecules dissolve in the mucus because certain water solubility is essential, and are carried to the receptors by specific transport protein. And these receptors on the cell, they then get activated and send a message to our brain, because it is more like an electric impulse that is created. And that electric impulse goes through a logic gate kind of things, and eventually it sends an electric impulse to the brain, and then we can sense that particular smell. Let us take some examples, and I would like to confuse you first. And because on this particular topic, we are all confused quite often. And then slowly we'll try to find out where confusions are and how to really understand this topic and where we are at present. So this would be the way that I would like to take you through. So for example, the foods that we use, nice aroma of fruits, or your food at home, or even in restaurant or some other places. Or even beautiful is our spices, like Indian spices are beautiful because of our presence of beautiful smells and the flavors. So the banana, for example, contains a molecule which is responsible for the smell of the banana is called isopentyl acetate. So you have an ester group here, and that is its unique property of the banana, the smell. Now the question is, does it necessarily mean that if you have a ester group, it will have a fruity odor? Not necessarily. That we'll discuss later. The cinnamon. Now you look at the cinnamon structure, you have an aromatic ring here, and then you have here an aldehydic function. So this molecule is again different from that, but you have a strong odor of cinnamon. Or lemon juice, the smell of lemon. You have a molecule which is not aromatic, but it has a beautiful citrus flavor. This is a molecule called limonene or vanillin. No, many of you like the vanillin smell, the vanilla smell in ice cream. This is now here again an aromatic compound because you have this benzene ring with different substituent on the aromatic ring. Or you have this wintergreen, which is again an aromatic compound and an ester group and an OH group, alcoholic group, which is called methyl salicylate. And methyl salicylate, all of you know, they use it in different products. So even if they're structurally different, or even if they are structurally similar, there could be different smells. Now look at this. And I think this particular slide will answer one of your questions that you sent me. That I read the question and then I will discuss about this. We usually connect the word aromatic compounds to organic chemistry, specifically a class of cyclic conjugated molecules. Is there any correlation between odor and aromatic compounds? Since there are many compounds other than these that have odor, alcohol, ester, or etc. Now here, let us take these three examples. Look at here the cinnamaldehyde. Yes, you have an aromatic group. It's an aromatic compound because of this benzene structure. In vanillin, you have this benzene structure, but different groups on it. Whereas methyl salicylate also contains different groups and you have aromatic ring. So now if I ask based on all these three, that are all compounds which have a smell aromatic? My answer is no. In these three cases, they are aromatic, but they do not have similar smell, they have different smell. So the next question now, do all compounds which are aromatic have a smell? Again, the answer is no. Look at the structure below, which is this famous compound is called aspirin. This aspirin, which you buy, in aspirin tablet, which is again an aromatic compound. And structurally, they are not very different. Molecular weight wise, they are very similar. So even if this compound is aromatic, there is no smell of this compound. So the answer is that are all compounds which have a smell aromatic or aroma? No. Do all compounds which are aromatic have a smell? The answer is again no. So you see that there is a huge problem of really talk the smell in terms of the structure, in terms of its particular functional groups. But let us talk a little more, then I will take off the different compounds and their smell. Now a relation between tastes and smell, because something like when you smell some food, good food, what happens? It increases your desire to eat it. So a good food, good smell increases your desire. So when you breathe some volatile gaseous molecule from the food, that increases desire, and from inside your mouth up to your throat while you chew, that increases your satisfaction. So the smell from a substance, if it is not a synthetic compound, which is single compound, but if it is a natural compound, like say for example cinnamon or any other natural compound, could be spice, could be food or anything, the smell of these substances can come from a combination of different molecules. So if we look at it, there are a lot of structures. Those my young friends who have not studied chemistry that intensively yet, please do not bother about structure. Just try to get the point, what we want to see. We want to really put forward in this particular discussion. So the natural cinnamon, it does not contain a single compound. It is a combination of many different compounds, but the primary compound is something called cinnamaldehyde. And this is an aromatic ring. You have a carbon-carbon double bond, and then you have an aldehyde function. Now, you can have an artificial cinnamon flavor, and this cinnamaldehyde can easily be prepared in the laboratory. Even the undergraduate students or master student can easily prepare this compound from easily available starting material in synthetic chemistry laboratory. That difference in their flavor is sometimes observed, that an artificial cinnamon flavor may not be exactly that of the natural cinnamon flavor, but that depends on which particular compound in the natural cinnamon is providing more contribution to the overall perception of the cinnamon flavor. So therefore, natural compounds, either all of them contribute to a particular odor, or certain compounds in the natural compounds contribute to that odor. For example, jasmine. If you take a jasmine flower and extract it, what quite often our master's level students, they try to isolate these different compounds, that you will find many different phytochemicals, the chemicals from plant source. And sometimes many of them are unique in their structures. Not all of them are aromatic. And you will find that you will have benzyl acetate, benzyl benzoate, phytol, jasmone, and methyl jasmonate. These are the different compounds which are the major components. I'm not telling, because in fact, when you extract a natural, the different chemicals from a natural source, there will be a myriad of different chemical compounds, but not all of them contribute to a particular odor. The other compounds serve different purpose. That is the reason why they are present in those natural source. But these two compounds are actually contribute to the jasmine odor of the flower that we perceive. Similarly, look at this, the musk family. The word musk, all of you are familiar with this, because this is something, you know, a kind of, I would say, a fragrance, or people have been using this from ancient times, and they used to isolate from the gland of musk deer. And that's why this is called musk family. And musk family have a different type of compounds. They can be isolated from the gland of those animals. They could be, you know, as you can see here, muscone, civetone, cyclopenta, decanolide or ambrocolide, musk bow, musk ketone, many compounds but actual mass contributions come from these compounds. So as you can see that the natural compounds, they provide insight about that what are the different compounds which can be found from the natural sources, and then from the natural sources we can isolate each one of them by different techniques, and then we can perceive those, or we can test, we can smell those and can see whether they really have any smell or not. In fact, I got a very interesting question from the group. The last question, which I will come at the end of today's talk, that is it possible that an odorant can be identified quantitatively rather than qualitatively? I will talk about that, but here again, you might, why I raised and why I indicated about this particular question is that who perceives it? What is the tolerance level of perception? So therefore, even if I isolate all these compounds from the natural source, and separately if I try to take the smell as an individual, can I really differentiate that these different compounds have different smell, or they have a very similar smell? So all these questions remain. Similarly, the rose odor. All these compounds, like in rose, if you extract the rose, take rose flower, the petals of rose, extract it in alcohol, very easy, and then you do some chromatographic separation, you can isolate these three compounds. But all these three compounds have more or less a very similar odor, but the primary contributor is this compound, is called 2-phenylethanol, that it has more stronger sense of this rose odor that we are familiar with. So now, as you can see, that if there are problems associated with natural sources, we have a large natural source, huge natural resources from where we can extract these different compounds for use in food, for use in everyday life, in perfumery and other things. But this is a little problematic. The problem is that it requires a rigorous effort to isolate the actual component responsible for a particular odor. And therefore, attempts have been made for synthetic chemists, those who make molecules in their laboratory. Making molecule is a fun. Making new molecule is a fun, because you are making something which definitely exists in nature. Mother Nature has created that molecule. But after that, if you make a new molecule in your laboratory, you are the second person. I mean, I would not say second person. After Mother Nature, you as a person, you are the first. If you make it, it's a quite exciting thing. So it is not only exciting or not intellectually satisfying, but the most important for is usefulness. You can use them for different purposes, and therefore synthetic chemists are needed to create new molecules with different fragrance. And therefore, in perfume industry or in food industry, in artificial flavoring industry, synthetic chemists are important, and they make molecules, and therefore they can contribute a lot to not only to create new molecules, but also in industry and contribute in economy as well. But the problem is, as we were telling for the last 5-6 minutes, that how do I know that this particular molecule will have this odor? So we need to understand that first, and then we can design the synthetic strategy, and one can make molecules. So the question to the synthetic chemist here is that, is there any link between molecules and their smell? And this next few slides will answer one of your questions. I think, yeah. So I already answered a couple of questions, but the next few slides will answer certain question, and that's related to the link between molecules and their smell. Now let us again get back, since this has, this is a primary sense, and therefore philosophers always thought about it. And in ancient Greece, Democritus, who developed the atomic theory for the universe, also proposed the first theory of smell. And that says that atoms of sweet smelling substances, because it was an atomic theory, right? And this Democritus atomic theory thought of that this universe is made of atoms of different sizes, and their size are different, shapes are different. And therefore he thought that the sweet smelling substances had smooth surface, whereas those which are not sweet, called what he termed as acidic materials, had sharp points that pricked and irritated the nose. So it's a more like a very uneven surface with some sharp points on the top of the surface that can prick and irritate the nose, and therefore they are not whether the smooth surface of those atoms can provide good smells. So that means the thought process, philosophers have started thinking about this long back in ancient Greece. But then a long time, people have started thinking about it, but what was not known is the molecules, how atoms form molecules, what will be the shape of the molecule, how the molecule will orient itself in three-dimensional space, which is in fact a three-dimensional geometry of the molecules. That was not known very well until the concept of chemical bonding, that means how atoms bind together to form molecules, was perfected. And Linus Pauling and R.W. Moncrief in the early half of the 20th century, they started thinking about the smell of different compounds and suggested that a smell of the molecule was determined by its shape and size. So size means how big the molecule is, and shape means what is the three-dimensional geometry of the molecule, whether it's a planar molecule, whether it's a tetrahedral molecule, or whether it's an octahedral molecule. So depending on the geometry of the molecule, they started thinking about that. And the first concept of the shape theory was established by John E. Amour, where he came up with a principle called lock and key, like in enzyme substrate. Like when you have an enzyme or a protein and you have something, then the lock, if you have the enzyme as the lock, and then the compound or a molecule is the key. If it fits properly, then you can have some kind of activation of a protein, and then it can send signal, and eventually we can perceive the odor. And he categorized the odor like about 6 primary odor. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 primary odor he thought about. Here there is a mistake. Anyway, but he said there could be primary odors are of musky, which are used in perfumes or aftershaves or wherever. Then you have a bad smell of rotten eggs. It's called putrid. Then you have a pungent smell of vinegar or some other compounds. Camphoraceous, like mothballs, or ethereal, like that is used in dry cleaning fluid. Floral, like rose, and you have jasmine and other flowers. Then peppermint, like mint gum and others. And he said that these different odors corresponds to the perception of different compounds with different receptors. So these receptor, which are the receptor cells or proteins in it, they recognize different shape odorants. Odorant means these molecules of different odor. Then concept came of an odotype theory or a weak shape theory, which was in the 1960s, that based on shape of the molecule, not the size or not based on their odor, but based on the shape of the molecule. And here it was thought of that the receptors probe a part of the molecule, not the full molecule. And the overall smell reflects the combination of the responses from the different receptors. And in fact, this is the beginning of the understanding of what exactly the smell of different compounds originate. So the odotype theory was based on a feed of a compound in a receptor, like enzyme substrate, as I said. So it was more like a lock and key principle, but now this deals with the shape of the molecules. If the molecule is too big and the protein receptor size is small, it cannot go and fit there. Only a part of it can fit. So it can provide a signal or it can generate a signal, and then it might have an odor. But if you have a small molecule that can go and fit there, and then there could be a different type of interactions with the enzyme and the molecule, and then you can have a different odor. So if it is so, size-wise similar compounds later on from the 1970s and 80s, size-wise very similar compounds were tested and checked whether this odotype theory is valid or not. So for example, here you have benzaldehyde, an aromatic compound, nitrobenzene and cyanobenzene. They all have similar kind of shape, geometry, or whatever you call it, because it's aromatic and they are all planar molecule. So if it is a planar molecule, they all have same odor, and indeed they are of very similar kind of odor, not same but similar kind of odor. But here these molecules their shapes are different, but still they have a very similar odor. Whereas completely different shaped molecules like this, you have these two compounds. You have oxygen here, you have sulfur here. So this is an aldehyde, which is called a thiophene aldehyde. And and this is thiophene aldehyde, pyranaldehyde, and you have furan aldehyde, and this one is just a simple gas, HCN gas, very little, very small size molecules. Compared to this, their size is different, shape is different, structure is different, but they also have very similar odor. So the observation was quite puzzling. So the bottom line is that so far, based on all this theory, neither the size nor the shape nor any other aromaticity functional groups did not provide much useful insight into the science of odor. So if we look at that, if you have, so what is the take-home message? The take-home message is that the different molecules can show similar odors, or similar molecules can have these similar odors. Don't bother about, quite, structurally quite difficult molecules, but you don't bother about the structure. Even if you look at it, at least for undergraduate and master students, you can differentiate. But for school students, those who have not studied organic chemistry much, for them at least, looking at the molecule, you can say that they are not same. Just you consider they are cartoons to you. So this cartoon diagram, if you consider, then also they look different. And chemically, you have a carbonyl group here. So it's a ketone. This is a ketone as well, but you have an aromatic ring here. You do not have aromatic ring here. You have nitro compound, but you do not have nitro group there. So these two compounds are very different types of molecules. They have very similar odor. And in fact, very difficult to distinguish their odor. And they are masky. Similarly, you look at these two compounds again structurally not similar. They have similar odor. Whereas look at these two. They are structurally very similar, isn't it? You have a ring here. Then you have a keto group, just like here. And you have a butyl group here, just like this. So except there is a little difference here, like, you know, in your younger days, we all wanted to differentiate between the two different structures. And here is the difference, is that very little difference structurally here with this methyl group. So even if they are structurally and functionally very similar, their odors are very different. One is a really bad urine-like smell, and this is odorless. There is no odor of this compound. Now the functional group. Quite often we say, oh, this is beautiful smell. Huh? So there must be an ester in it. And that's what we have been, you know, learning this from our childhood. Now you look at it, yes, sometimes they are. These ester groups present, COTET, they are structurally different, but functionally same. You have an ester group here, you have an ester group in this molecule, and both have fruity odor. But I will show you a little later that even if you have an ester group, you can have very bad smell of that compound, or you do not have any odor at all. Likewise, you have structurally, functionally very different compounds. This is a cyclic hydrocarbon, has a camphor-like smell. This is a halogenated hydrocarbons, hexachloroethane, also has a camphor-like smell. This is true camphor, the camphor that we use. Natural camphor has this structure. Whereas an inorganic phosphorus compound has also a camphor smell. So you see that there is no relation between the functional group and similarity in their odor. So therefore, where we are. Similarly, the effect of structural modification. So ester group we were talking about, they are good. A little change can induce a change in their odor properties. Sometimes there is no effect. So at all there is no change. Here look at this one and this one. Where is the difference? Everybody can look at it. The difference is here. You have 3-methyl group here, which is a butyl group, and this is called isopropyl group. So there is not much different, only 1 methyl group difference, but they are very similar woody smell. Whereas here this one, you take this one with an isopropyl group, an alcohol, here this is an ester, so it's expected to be a good odor as per our understanding, although as you will learn today that relation is probably not always true. This one has a beautiful lily-like odor, whereas this one has a sandalwood like odor. So here you have isopropyl group, you have a tertiary butyl group, one difference in methyl group that makes them different. Whereas here, if you look at it, you do some change here in the structure, rest functional groups will be the same. So therefore, a structural change here does not change the odor, or even if you modify a little bit, then also the smell remain more or less similar. On the other hand here, if you do some cases, if you do modification on this particular carbon, you have a tertiary butyl group and this one, which is the structure that we have just now seen, number 22. This has sweet and woody smell, whereas if you just change the functionality from tertiary butyl group to this butyl group, so now you have an isobutyl group, the taste is not really, the smell is not really good. This is a harsh, very harsh raspberry kind of smell. And here again you have a different now compounds with different substitution. In this position again you have very similar odor. So nothing, we do not get any molecule, their structure, their functional groups present in it really do not have any correlation. So now the point is, any other parameters contribute to the odor? Like isomerism, there is something which is called a same compound can exist in different form, and they are called isomers. Even if you have different isomers, they could be geometrical isomer, that means geometrically they are different, or positional, that means everything will be same molecular formula, but structurally they will be slightly different. Look at this one. This is structurally they are different because the three-dimensional orientation they are different. Here, this group and this group, they are all very, very similar, you see. The only difference is here, only the undergraduate and master student will understand the meaning of this one. That this means this particular group is not towards you. This is away from you. And this means this particular group is towards you. So this is a three-dimensional orientation in space. Both of them, even if they are different, they are isomers. They are in fact optical isomers. They have very similar odor. Now here you look at this. If I have this alcohol and this alcohol, only difference is that whether this particular group is oriented in space and other one will be its mirror image, then they will have here in this case you have completely different odor. Similarly, the geometrical isomerism here, this is called cis because this is a double bond and this carbon is oriented in the same direction of the double bond, same side of the double bond. That's why this is called cis. And here in this case, along this double bond, this carbon is one side and this carbon is in another side. So therefore, this is called trans. And they are the same aldehyde compounds, but cis and trans differs. Now, again, we go to another aldehyde. The cis and trans have a very similar odor. So, isomerism also does not play any role in directing the odor of a molecule. So, the positional isomer, now if I move in this compound, this tertiary butyl group is positioned here. Now if I move this group from here to here, now in this case you have the same smell, but this one has more intense lily smell than this one. Whereas this case, when you have an isopropyl group, and you change the isopropyl group from here to there, look at this. They are of the same intensity and similar kind of odor. So there are many such examples that I can cite, and all these studies, whether you have the saturation, that means if you have a double bond or a carbon-carbon single bond, but same alcoholic functionality, they may have similar odor or may not have similar odor. Therefore, saturation or unsaturation has no effect or no direct correlation with their odor. So the effect, similarly, if you change the alcohol from one to another one, so these are different types of alcohols, you see they have a different kind of odor, and sometimes they will be same odor, like these two compounds you see. So here you have a primary alcohol, and this is a secondary alcohol. And this primary and secondary alcohols have similar sandalwood-like odor, whereas the primary alcohol here and this primary alcohol, secondary alcohol here, they are of different odor. I don't want to tell you what are the other parameters, like you can change from ketone to acetate. There could be some, so if you change the functional group, they could be very different in odor, or they could be slightly different, or they could be similar in odor between the two compounds when you change the functional group from one to another one, keeping the whole backbone, the remaining backbone, same. Or you can have substitution. I told you this, but here you look at it, these two compounds are different. So you have different substitution. They are of similar odor, but in this case and this case, if you just provide a substitution on this double bond, or on this double bond, or on this double bond, or somewhere else on the chain, or on this particular structure of the compound, the backbone, carbon-carbon backbone of this particular organic compound, there could be different odor. Now I told you about chirality. That means chiral compounds are those which can rotate the plane polarized light. So there could be two right-handed rotation and left-handed rotation, and they are called optical isomers, and chiral compounds are those which can show this optical isomerism. And the one I showed you here, like this thing, so these are basically examples of isomers. They can have either similar odor or different odor. So therefore, so this is the paper that talks about, this is a paper that more or less covers a large number of compounds based on the different structure and their properties, size, shape, their isomerism and substitution, functional group, all these properties they have evaluated, and they came to the conclusion that despite the numerous excellent studies during the last 30 years, the area of structure-odor relationship remains rather confusing. So the chemistry, we can make molecules, we can isolate molecules from natural sources, but we cannot predict that if I have this particular structure, the smell of that compound will be this. And as a result, this remains confusing and which requires other understanding. And that is the reason why I did not put the word chemistry, the chemistry of odor, but I prefer the phrase, the science of odor. So where we stand now, the breakthrough came only in 1991, not many years ago, when two scientists, Richard Axel and Linda Bach, they identified the gene family. Now we are getting to biology. And at the beginning of today's discussion, Suparna madam was talking about the relationship between different branches of science. And here it is truly an interdisciplinary, that if we really understand something which cannot be understood just based on the knowledge of a particular subject, but that requires expertise, understanding of different subject. So before we get into this particular biological aspect of odor, let me tell you, my dear young friends, please do not compartmentalize different subjects. Science is science. You should have a very holistic approach toward learning science. So please do not think this subject is something good, this subject is bad, this subject is something I need to remember, this subject is something that I need to really apply my logic. It is not like that. All these are science. There is a logic. Maybe the way, or at this age, whatever the topics you are learning or the way you are learning, sometimes they are boring, sometimes you feel that they need to be remembered, but after some time, when you have the basic understanding of that subject, you will realize that all this boundary and compartmentalization will be removed, and you really need to think about getting into the other, really to enrich yourself. That would help you to take you to a different level, whether it's a new discovery, whether it's a new understanding, because without understanding science as a whole, in a philosophical perspective, we cannot really do science in that way. Now let's get into here. Now we talk about the gene family. So chemistry, we try to understand. That does not necessarily mean that now we'll throw away. We should not really take a very strong view on everything. So far, our understanding is that there is no structure-function correlation, but chemistry is essential to make those molecules, to make us understand, to make others also understand that this is the problem. So problems need to be addressed. Who can address this? This can be addressed now by biologists. And in collaboration with the biologist, we can get a lot of information, as you will see in a couple of slides. So they identified the gene family that encodes for the olfactory receptor proteins, because you know the genes are responsible for the synthesis or biosynthesis of different proteins. And these olfactory receptor proteins are the proteins that binds with the molecules. These molecules which gets into the receptor proteins and then bind there. And therefore, we need to understand what are those proteins. And these two scientists who got Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2004, their work was on this particular topic of a novel multi-gene family may encode odorant receptors, a molecular basis for odor recognition. What is that? So in a nutshell, in a very simple language, let me tell you, it's nothing. When a molecule comes from an odorant, it activates the olfactory receptor proteins. And this olfactory receptor protein is something called transmembrane protein. I don't want to get into everything. So they have a 7-helix structure. These are called transmembrane receptors. Since they have 7 such helix, like helical structure, you can see. And then when nerve impulses are sent from the receptors to the specific areas of the brain responsible for the smell, the signals from each kind of receptor cells are believed to come to the same glomerulus, that is the part of the olfactory bulb in the brain, and the pattern of signals arriving at the brain constitutes the smell of molecules perceived by the brain. But there is a problem. How do we know that which molecule will bind to which protein and can give a certain kind of a signal, and that signal will distinct itself from the other signal, and that will provide the brain to recognize a unique odor of a particular compound? So the primary sequences of thousands of olfactory receptor proteins are now known. But the problem is that the structure of the proteins, of the olfactory receptor proteins, are not known. So the structure is something, an area of research called protein crystallography. So the like solid crystals, like salt, like sodium chloride crystals that you see in your salt, and the table salt that you use, that's a solid. You have a structure, beautiful lattice structure. Similarly, protein can be crystallized in that way. And if we know the stage, or if we can crystallize a protein, that protein provide us useful insights into its property as well as how the protein cavity look like, where an odorant molecule can go and bind. But that kind of structure has not yet been solved, although we know that the receptor proteins, what are their sequences and all. But these two gentlemen, Axel and Bach, they came up with an interesting, that is the reason why they got the Nobel Prize, is that the interaction between what they did, they took a similar kind of proteins. Since they know the sequence, they used engineered protein, very similar to the olfactory receptor proteins, and tested with different compounds, with different functional groups, like alcohols, like acids, and other odorant molecules. And then by checking the interaction of these odorant receptors and the odorant molecules, they came to the conclusion that each olfactory receptor protein can recognize many odorants. So if one protein can bind many different molecules, like lock and key principle, that is still valid. Along with that, each odorant can be detected by several olfactory receptors. That's a very interesting combination. So one receptor can bind many molecules. Similarly, one molecule can be detected by different olfactory receptors through binding. And different odorants can be detected by different olfactory receptor combinations. And that is the reason why different signals that are created upon binding of the molecule of the odorant and the olfactory receptor protein, the signal goes to the brain and the brain can distinguish these different signals. And that is the reason why even if we have 300 odd olfactory receptors in the human, where you have other cases more than that, the system can discriminate between a large number of odorants. And this explains why, though there are only a few hundred different receptors, humans can recognize so many different odors distinctly. And that's the way how it evolved. Now, what they did, they tried different molecules, took and engineered. So this is basically something called human olfactory receptor protein, a protein which was in fact isolated from semen. And this, then it was engineered and gave us the sequence of the different proteins in that was made, and then they used it to check whether molecules bind it or not. And what he found with the different aldehydes and other compounds, that none of these molecules bind to these particular receptor proteins HOR17-4. Whereas among the other molecules, like these two molecules do not bind, but all these molecules, as you see, they are all aldehydes, right? And we talked about this, that even if they are structurally different, they can bind or they may not bind, but or they can have a different smell. So this particular receptor protein binds different molecules, as you can see. And among all these different molecules, only this one shows the strongest response. And this information is now very, very useful to model that what is the new molecule that should be prepared to serve as a ligand for the human olfactory receptor proteins. So if we now go and look at it, so the odor of this molecule, we know that comes from its binding with the HOR17-4 proteins. And if we make a molecules of this size which can fit into the pocket of the protein, HOR17 olfactory receptor protein, then this can bind and you can have an information about the design strategy that indeed for this particular smell, I need this molecule. So size-wise, I just cannot make that the molecule is very big, it will not bind. If the molecule is too small, it will not bind strongly, and therefore they cannot provide any information about what odor it could be. So this is only one of the proteins, and now you have 340 such olfactory receptor proteins there. So if you have a 340 olfactory receptor proteins present there, we need to know that what are the different cavity size of this protein. And here comes the protein crystallography. And this protein crystallography in future is the area of research where one can isolate each one of these receptor proteins, try to get its structure, try to get an understanding about the pocket size, check its effect with the binding ability, and one then only you know that which kind of molecule you should synthesize for particular purpose. So the take-home message today is that the prediction of odor will remain only statistical probabilities rather than certainties. There will be plenty of room for surprises and serendipity. And here, the beginning of understanding has started only a few years back. Now, I think this is an area which has not been explored quite well, and this is an area which can be explored, and the future generation scientists will definitely take it to a different level to have more understanding, more surprises, and then I think we'll be able to understand this particular topic even better. So I'm now end of it. As I said, I'm not an expert on this topic. I wanted to share with you the way I understood this topic. And for that, I went through different literature, papers, internets, very difficult to list all of them. But in one line, I would say all the authors whom I cited here in this presentation, I thank all of them for their contribution to prepare this presentation and to enrich me with my understanding, and that's what I wanted to share with you. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take up questions and comments. Thank you so much.
Can I ask,
Thank you.
Abhyuday, can I ask one question before you ask the question? Audience, son, can you ask one question? Abhyuday, with your permission.
Of course, ma'am. Please, it would be my pleasure.
I was listening to your lecture, and you know, I had never interest in chemistry before that, and something clicked to my mind. See, whenever people feel allergic, and if there is a strong smell, so they start sneezing, and it continues till they take cetirizine or something. So, can you please explain the science behind it?
Okay, so it's actually as I told, not everything what gets into your nose will go and bind to the proteins, and you need a little, very simple few molecules you need. Even one molecule is enough sometimes to perceive the smell of a compound. What happens, this so much of molecule, it goes there, it creates a kind of a huge population there, and then it actually sticks to the mucous membrane on the surface of the protein. And then what happens, this creates a kind of an uneasy feeling on the cell surface, and you get, your physiological system wants to get rid of it. And therefore, that's a natural signaling that it goes, that a sneezing is necessary so that there will be a kind of a pressure and things will go out of it.
Oh. Thank you so much. Over to you, Abhyuday.
Yeah. So thank you.
We can stop presentation so that Abhyuday can take if there is some question from YouTube chat box.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Let me see if there is anything in the chat box.
Most of the questions have been answered by Chemistry Society SNU. A big thank you to Gunjan, who is Associate Secretary of, I think, of Chemistry Society, Shiv University. You know, Dr. Pine, when you were explaining all this, a group of students from Chemistry Society SNU, whom we had given responsibility to answer the queries, were continuously working on YouTube. There is one question which is still a kind of argument is taking place, is why when you say that something evaporate we smell, why can't we smell water?
Yeah, correct. That's true. That's a very interesting thing. I mean, when we talk about smell, when we talk about odor of a particular compound, we talk about in the context of we, us, right? So, for example, we live on this planet where you have water vapor, where you need oxygen, and you see those essential elements. Nature has evolved in a way there is no olfactory receptor proteins to really bind those molecules. But you know, very interesting information. Elephant, for example, who has a huge number of olfactory receptor proteins, they have a very strong sense of odor. The olfaction sense for like the greyhounds, the bloodhounds, or also for the elephants, they have very strong sense. In fact, elephants have this particular sensory protein for water, because so that they can actually sense about 20 kilometers away, they can sense that where water source is. That's a beautiful way Mother Nature has created things. We have just started learning. I mean, and all answers, I always say, all answers are there in nature. When we are stuck with a problem, when we are stuck to solve a real problem, we should look at the nature, how Mother Nature has already sorted this out long back. And finding it, that's why this is called research. You really are not inventing anything. Mother Nature has already created it. We have to search it, find it. That's why it is research, and then apply that understanding to sort out a problem. So yeah, from our perception, because we live in this world and nature has not evolved that protein, because otherwise it would be pretty complicated. We will get smell of water and then you will not get the smell of your food. Right? Or you will get the smell of oxygen always, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, this particular area of science is still evolving. Very little is known. Only some breakthrough has lately came into being, but a long way to go to understand this. So I think in the next 50 years or so, there are plenty of rooms to explore in this particular area.
So, you talked about how we may not be able to smell water, we may not be able to smell oxygen. Could it be possible that over years of evolution, we became used to the smell of water that we can't distinguish it separately? Or that we don't have the senses to smell water?
Yeah, right. But this is a very interesting thing. I mean, I don't know if, because something called evolution, which we have no control over, right? So who controls? In every sphere of life, even the evolution of life, everything evolved, right? And there is nobody on the driver's seat. As society evolves, culturally everything evolves, language evolves, everything evolves. There is nobody's driver's seat. So I don't know. I mean, it could be possible if nature wants it, that they, and in certain circumstances, it is essential to really develop a sensory olfactory sensing of such kind of molecules. Who knows? In the process of evolution, this can happen, but at this moment, I don't have the true answer. I don't have the answer whether indeed in another 20 years, so that I can see that I can smell oxygen.
Thank you, sir. So you talked about how research in this field is going, like it's gradually increasing.
Sorry?
You talked about how research in this field is gradually increasing and over time it's getting the recognition that it deserves.
Right,
So, what
right.
is the
That's what.
future scope of research? Are there any
Yeah.
advantages of understanding odor from such a chemical point of view?
Right. So the thing is that, as you know, first of all, why we do research? It does not necessarily always to be to have a product the next day, right? First of all, you will do research to satisfy your intellectual hunger. That's the number one. First thing that must be there. Without, you will not do anything in research. And nowadays we hear from several sources of the funding agencies that, we are giving you money, we need this product overnight. Research is not like that. I give you money and tomorrow you give me the product. No, it's not possible. So research will continue. Definitely that will bring something, but what is most important is that to explore the unknown. And as I at least tried to give you a feeling that which is the area in this particular topic where you really have an open field to play, right? You need to understand chemistry, you need to understand biology, so the chemical biology of this particular sense, the protein crystallography, and multidisciplinary approach to understand the basic science of it, and then definitely you will have a control. If we know a little bit with this itself, we now know that what kind of molecules should be prepared. But after a few years, when we have more understanding about the structure of the protein, how they bind, what are the different receptors, then definitely we'll have more understanding, and with confidence we can say that this is the molecule. You like an odor of a musk, you want to give someone a special musk, on somebody's birthday, you can actually hire a chemist and say, I want this molecule. And then you will have a custom made things which does not exist. So if we understand these things, eventually things will be very, very different.
Dr. Pine, we have a very young scientist, Abhyuday, with us, who is bubbling with some question, and he chatted with me. So please
sure. Please go ahead.
So we won't take too much of your time, only 2 more questions.
Any questions you can ask me. This evening is, but I may not be able to answer all your questions. I'll try.
So we always talk about how a smell smells good, food smells good, this smells bad. But is there any possible way that an odorant can be identified quantitatively rather than qualitatively?
Yeah, I had a plan to take up this question of yours, which was not covered in my talk, and that was your last question. Is it possible that an odorant can be identified quantitatively, right? And in fact, let me tell you, this is not a topic that that we are thinking today. I think when I was doing my PhD in Germany back in 98, 99, that time one of the laboratory adjacent to my lab was working on something called dynamic olfactometry. And they were devising system to find out how quantitatively you can measure and perception of odor. And this is something called your threshold limit of olfactory perception. So what they do, say for example, you are given a particular compound in the matrix of a gas, and then I try to continuously dilute it with a pure moisture-free, without odor-free gas. And this particular thing is called a unit, an olfactory unit, by which you will be provided a quantitative information that exactly after how many dilution you will not be able to perceive that smell anymore. It's a fantastic way of doing this. Huh? So if you dilute this 100 times, the unit is 100 olfactory unit per cubic centimeter. That's a very, very interesting thing. And in fact, I attended this lecture because the student who was working on that was my friend who we used to go for beer together on Fridays, and then this was something a huge thing that the German company started investing, and now you indeed have a dynamic olfactometer, which is nowadays available. So you might Google that, and you can find it over there.
Thank you so much, sir. So your talk has provided a completely new perspective to the odors of chemistry.
It's my pleasure if you get something out of it. As I said, this is not my research area. When I also started learning it, I got so much excited that I still give this lecture other than my own research.
I completely
I think one more question I did not answer yet. Can chemistry of odor play an identification and control of disease-causing virus like COVID-19? Right, this is another question which was not covered in my talk, I guess. And it's a very similar thing, you know. And many of us, I mean, I had this experience when in last winter, when I was infected with COVID-19, I realized that for 2 or 3 days, I didn't have any sense of smell. And many of us had this problem. And in fact, I started reading this. After that, I didn't get any answer. What is exactly happening? Because science research takes time. Biology research requires a lot of time. And let me tell you the paper that came. In fact, if you wish, I can send you the link of this paper. This is published on 26th of October 2020. One paper has come where they predicted, I mean, it's not still substantiated by experimental evidence. They said that olfactory receptor cells, so these are all the olfactory receptor cells, they do not express the protein which can bind, which is basically, they do not express something called angiotensin converting enzyme, ACE2, which binds this with the spike protein of COVID-19, because COVID-19 has the spike protein. So if olfactory receptor cell cannot express this protein, then who does? Then why do we lose our smell, the perception of smell? It is predicted there, but the cell that support this olfactory neurons, they in fact express this ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. So you have the neuron, and neuron passes on the cell surface, right? The cell that support that is called the neuron supporting cells. And these neuron supporting cells, they can generate, they can express this protein which are susceptible to binding with the COVID-19. So this is something, you probably know that there are two types of olfactory loss or sense loss of olfaction. What is called anosmia, another is called hyposmia. So the anosmia means which is actually a complete loss, and then you have an hyposmia which is called partial loss. And in fact, COVID-19, as you can see, it actually you lose completely. Although it's a temporary, but you lose complete sense because it actually attacks your neural system. The neuron support is completely gone, so no signal goes to your brain. That's the reason.
Wow.
Good thing is that, like unlike any other nerve disease, this does not hamper the nerve cell. If this damages the nerve cell, it's irreparable. So that's a good thing. Otherwise, it would have been a fatal flaw. I mean, once you lose it forever. And then I don't know what would have happened. So it's a good thing that the Mother Nature also did not make did not make this particular virus really that nasty that it actually kills that part also, then I think we are gone forever. Even if we survive, you do not smell anything. All right. Yeah. Any other question?
Gunjan, over to you.
Yeah.
Before you say anything, there are no words, Dr. Pine. I'm not going to say vote of thanks because I'm completely speechless. But yes, I will connect you again and I will be taking you in loop and you will be a member of us, sir.
I am. We belong to academic community, right? I'm not a researcher. I'm an academician first, and then I'm a researcher, right? So we are all together.
I completely resonate with Vinita ma'am and the students that you were actually telling a story to us. I think it was just like a story. It was so logical, and the end of the story was that nature of science will remain like this, always will not give us the accurate and the correct answer. There is no single answer. We will continue in our search. And that was even more interesting when you say that now we have to collaborate with bio to actually get to the bottom of this, and how beautifully you talked about crystallography and opening up many more future scopes for that. It was just like a story. And
even physics. This deals with a lot of biophysics.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to you, Gunjan.
Thank you so much. So, sir, this definitely whetted all our appetites to understand science better. I especially really liked your statement about not compartmentalizing science, because that is something we often have a tendency to do, that, oh, this is physics, this is beyond me, oh, bio, I don't want to deal with it. But the fact that to first see science as science was a really great take-home message for me from this talk. Yeah. And I would also like to mention that following your talk, the Chemistry Society has been inspired to host 4 more sessions with the Shivnada schools, covering multiple different topics, and has been titled Does It Matter? The form for registering has been added to the YouTube chat and will probably be circulated further in the future. We really hope to hear from you and would love to be able to take this further. Thank you.
Most importantly, Gunjan, the two students of SNS Noida and Gurgaon, Abhyuday and Kavya, will be a part of peer tutoring with you, will work with your guidance, and whatever you plan should be first mailed to Anamika ma'am and obviously to Dr. Pine, and once he approves, you can take it further. Sir, they have planned a very good 4 session. These kids are from MSc and Masters from Nadar University.
Yeah.
And whenever they take session, this is a collaborative work of KaryoUS. So some school students who are very good in the subject, like Abhyuday and Kavya, will be also peer tutoring with them. And this team will upgrade, or make aware rest all 5 campuses students by taking session. So, over to you, Gunjan.
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that the 4 topics we will be covering would be the applications of chemistry and chemistry in pop culture, spectroscopy, molecular gastronomy, and a few more topics involving matter.
Wow, very good. Fantastic. Very nice.
Could you please invite Jayati ma'am for...
Yes. Thank you, sir. Honestly, I see a lot of intimidating things and like helix structures, and then I get so like, but then this was the first time I've actually tried to understand them, and I've actually understood a little bit of it. So thank you so much. With that, I would like to invite Ms. Jayati Bhattacharjee, who is chemistry faculty at Shivnada School, Noida, and she's honestly the person behind my interest in chemistry. And I would like to call upon her to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Kavya. And as Vinita and Sriparna said, I am really at a loss of words, because it was like just we will sit and go on listening to you, and it should not end. But however, good things come to an end, because we always embark on the new journey. So, Professor Spine, it's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of Shivnada School, Noida, Shivnada University, and all of us who were privileged to listen to you. in perfumery the future lies primarily in the hands of chemists. And multidisciplinary approach, I mean, some of the keywords that you have spoken during your talk, I've just noted down, and they're endless. So I have actually covered 4 pages of my notes from that.
No, you don't. Sorry to interrupt you. Even if you wish, I can share my presentations with all of you. If you wish, I can send you my PowerPoint presentation. So
we will put on our website.
There is absolutely nothing in it that I need to hide or I need to keep with me. Everything is in literature, and science should be like that. Science should be for everybody. Everything should be available to the students or interested person in science.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's a wonderful offer, Professor Pine, and we will learn more from it. And the fact that excites me is I have always been looking at how to motivate the students about chemistry. Although chemistry is all around us and interconnectedness, as Sriparna said, but these, as Kavya just now said, that the structures and the formulas look very daunting. But now that you have made the connection, I'm sure all our viewers from who are viewing right now the live on YouTube and our students, they are all excited to explore more. And this is actually connecting us back to nature. I think, like me, Sriparna is also thinking of many IA research questions that are coming up that will be facilitated. So thank you, Professor Pine. And not only our students, but we as teachers are also feeling very enriched with your talk, and hope this journey continues together. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having to spend some time with you. I'll be very happy if students get really something out of it. That's why I'll be very happy about it.
Of course, this vote of thanks cannot be complete without thanking Dr. Manna. So Dr. Anamika Manna and Vinita ma'am. So therefore, our special thanks to them and all these students who have worked, very hard to bring all of this together. And one of our colleagues, Dr. Mayank Agnihotri, is not here, but he was the one who helped in creating the flyer YouTube video to motivate others to join this session. So thank you all.
There's another name which who is always present in all sessions is Naman Goyal. Can you please switch on your camera? A big thank you. Without his help, we cannot live stream anything. And I don't know, there are no Dr. Pine. He is. You can say Vinita ma'am is because of Naman. You can say when Karyo started, it was Uday who was, because these kids are very good in technology. So Uday helped me, and now he has graduated, and now Naman is always there with me. And I would like Abhyuday to be also with me. I want Kavya is already associated in KaryoUS and all live streaming and everything. He's taking session on rise of robots, which has become big hit. And it became so big hit that we got a legal notice from US because there is a profit-based company who is not watching their robotics session and they are watching his robotics session. And so the name of this science society was Nucleus. Now it is KaryoUS because they started claiming that we have this, we own this, and we got a legal notice. So he's another wonder boy, like Abhyuday, like Kavya, like Gunjan, and I'm sure that these kids will always remember you, sir, and all the resource persons which we invite on this platform. Also, I want to add here, Dr. Pine, that all the sessions what these kids are going to take, these 3 kids, will be sent, the PowerPoint will be sent first to you. Just take some 5 minutes, go through it, any suggestion add, and obviously they will CC to Sriparna ma'am, me and Jyoti ma'am, and then they will take session. So you will be our mentor and you will be mentoring this group of peer tutors so that they can teach mass.
Yeah, sure. Very good. I'll be very happy about that.
Thank you. Naman, you can stop live streaming now.